Another minute or so.
I'm going to put it in the chat as well.
Thank you, Jill.
Yep.
Again, everybody, we are going to get started in just a moment. We do have an ASL interpreter present with us. If anybody does require the assistance of the ASL interpreter, if you could please reach out to Jill Hogle. She just put a message into the chat. We just want to make sure that if you have any questions, that Stephen will be able to make sure that we're able to answer those. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. All right. And Jill, could you just help me if you're seeing the slides correctly?
It's not on presenter view yet. I'm seeing the slides done. There we go. You got it.
Good. And you're getting just the slides.
Just the slides, yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm very notorious for doing that incorrectly. So thank you very much, Jill. Okay, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Brian Pramanik from Disability Rights New Jersey. Today, we are going to be talking about for individuals with paralysis in nursing homes. This is a Know Your Rights presentation. And again, we do have the assistance of an ASL interpreter today. We're going to go over some housekeeping items, and then we will get right into this topic for today. So general housekeeping, this webinar is being recorded, and the presentation and recording will be shared publicly for everybody. If everybody, it looks like everybody is muted, if you could remain muted throughout the presentation, that'd be greatly appreciated. Certainly, people also do not need to have their video on if they do not want to. If you do have any questions, if you could please use the chat function. Jill Hogle from Disability Rights New Jersey is kind of in charge of the chat, so she'll certainly make me aware if there are any questions. And then in terms of accessibility, again, we do have an ASL interpreter. The recording, there will also be a transcription for the recording, and subtitles are available. If anybody does have any other accessibility needs, please feel free to reach out to Jill again in the chat in a private message, and we can certainly try to accommodate that. Okay, so for today's Know Your Rights presentation, we have a few things, a few different learning objectives. First, I just want to talk a little bit about Disability Rights New Jersey, about our agency and the work that we do. And then I want to speak a little bit about the Reeve Foundation, who provided the funding for us to do this work. And then we're going to get into some of the rights-based information. So we'll start off by discussing nursing facility admissions, a little bit of information about that, the right to person-centered planning, Medicaid basics, and then leaving a nursing home. And this presentation today is really geared to be, ideally a helpful kind of introduction for folks into these various different issues. Disability Rights New Jersey certainly has a lot of resources available online that can provide a little bit more information if folks have it. But hopefully we'll kind of be able to get a pretty good overview of all of these things today. And certainly if people have more specific questions, you can put those in the chat. Okay, so for folks that don't know anything about Disability Rights New Jersey or know a little bit about Disability Rights New Jersey, we are New Jersey's designated protection and advocacy agency. And so as the protection and advocacy agency, we investigate reports of abuse and neglect. We monitor institutions like nursing facilities to ensure the protection of rights of people with disabilities. We represent clients with disabilities in legal matters. We provide information, referral, and technical assistance. We engage in outreach, training, and education for individuals with disabilities, as well as various other advocates. And we advocate for systemic reform for people with disabilities. So we operate a lot of ways like a legal services organization, and then Jill's team. Jill is the director of investigations and monitoring, and they are able to conduct those investigations of any reports of abuse or neglect. And our mission at Disability Rights New Jersey is to preserve and advance the human, civil, and legal rights of people with disabilities. Now, the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. So again, I'll get a little bit more into the grant that they provided to Disability Rights New Jersey, and just a little bit about their foundation. I know I personally was more familiar with the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation. That's something I've known about longer than I did about even protection advocacy agencies. So it's a really remarkable foundation. And the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation is dedicated to curing spinal cord injury by funding innovative research and improving the quality of life for individuals and families impacted by paralysis. By uniting the brightest minds in the field, the Reeve Foundation is working tirelessly to accelerate scientific discoveries across the field of spinal cord research by investing in labs across the globe. Additionally, through a cooperative agreement with the Administration for Community Living, the Reeve Foundation's National Paralysis Resource Center promotes the health, well-being, and independence of people living with paralysis, providing comprehensive information, resources, and referral services, assisting over 100,000 individuals and families since its launch in 2002. The Reeve Foundation is committed to elevating the community's voice and needs to achieve greater representation and independence. And I will jump a little bit into the specific grants that Disability Rights New Jersey received from the Reeve Foundation, but I did also just want to mention from the outset that in addition to this kind of being a little bit of an introduction into some of these issues related to nursing home residents, they are not all entirely specific to people with paralysis or people with spinal cord injuries. A lot of this rights-based information is more broadly applicable to residents of nursing homes generally, other people with disabilities. We do have some information available related to issues that might be a little bit more specific to people with paralysis. But again, a lot of this information is more broadly towards people with disabilities. And the Reeve Foundation's National Paralysis Resource Center has a lot of great resources. If anybody maybe has very specific questions that as it relates specifically to paralysis or spinal cord injury. And certainly you can also drop those in the chat and I will try to answer them as best I can. So the grant that we received from the Reeve Foundation is called the Quality of Life Grant. There were 53 grants totaling over $1 million that were awarded. And these grants support nonprofit organizations like Disability Rights New Jersey that empower individuals living with paralysis. And so since this quality of life grant program started, There have been nearly 4,000 grants totaling over $46 million that have been awarded. So obviously, we are very fortunate to be within that group, and the Reed Foundation has done just a tremendous amount of work in the over 20 years that they have been open, and so we're very fortunate to be able to receive this funding from them. And so with the funding, Disability Rights New Jersey provides people with paralysis in New Jersey nursing homes education related to discharge and community integration. And again, we'll also advocate with stakeholders for access and independence for people living with paralysis in New Jersey nursing homes. Okay, so to start, I thought it would just be important to kind of make sure we're all on the same page as to what we're talking about in terms of nursing facility admissions. And so in New Jersey, in order to meet a nursing facility level of care, a resident must require hands-on assistance with three activities of daily living. These are often called ADLs, and a fair warning to everybody, if they are not already familiar, that this world has a lot of acronyms. So I will always try to define what the acronym is. But I think it's also important to mention that very typically you'll hear people say ADLs, and they're referring to usually activities of daily living. And so again, a resident must require assistance with three activities of daily living. And if a resident has a cognitive impairment, they must require either supervising or cueing in activities of daily living in those ADLs, or a combination of both. So they might require some hands-on assistance, some supervision and cueing. It can certainly vary. And just to make sure that we have some clarity about what an ADL is, they can include things like bathing, dressing, eating, grooming, toileting, and transferring. So again, typically, uh, individuals that are residents of nursing homes will require hands-on assistance with at least three of these activities of daily living. Certainly, they could require assistance with more. And then I also just quickly wanted to go over the rights of residents of nursing home facility residents. And again, this is something that is broadly speaking to all residents of nursing homes. It's not just specific to residents with paralysis or spinal cord injury. It is broadly protections for all residents of nursing homes. But I do think that it is just always important to reiterate the rights that nursing home residents have, because I think sometimes maybe these rights people maybe don't even know that they have. So it's always good to kind of go over some of these. And so a nursing home resident has a right to be involved in their care plan. And I will get into a little bit more about care planning and what that looks like briefly in just a moment. And the resident has a right to participate in establishing goals for their care plan, to participate in planning your medical treatment. Residents have a right from physical and mental abuse, corporal punishment, or involuntary seclusion, to manage their own finances or delegate that responsibility, to live in a safe, clean, comfortable, and home-like environment, to be treated with courtesy, dignity, and respect, to have physical privacy, to meet with any visitors of their choice, and there are protections against involuntary discharge and involuntary transfer from one nursing home to another. And so this list is certainly not exhaustive of all of the rights that nursing home residents have, but these certainly are some very important rights that hopefully will help kind of guide the conversation that we're having today. And it's always good to kind of remember that we're not just kind of talking metaphorically about some of these things that people with disabilities deserve, that this is rights that they have that do deserve to be protected. So to start, we are going to start with person-centered planning. And so I think on its face, when you hear person-centered planning, you maybe kind of have a bit of an insight as to what that involves, but I think it's always really good to kind of go a bit through the steps of what person-centered planning looks like, because it is something that does, I think, require a lot of thought and intentionality. So person-centered planning is a set of approaches designed to assist someone in planning their own life and supports. And the goal of person-centered planning is to enable individuals with disabilities to reach their goals, have control over their lives, and increase their independence. And this is something that is a very important theme that we have, that something that we try to really always ensure at Disability Rights New Jersey. Certainly something that the Reeve Foundation takes a lot of action about, that even the residents' rights also have included, is really about making sure that a person has that autonomy over their decision making, that they're able to be involved in their care, that they're able to speak up for themselves, be treated with dignity and respect. I think it's really important always to remember that a nursing facility is a home for lots of people. And those individuals that are in nursing homes really do deserve the right to be treated with dignity and respect, and make sure that they are at the forefront of everything planning their care. So again, put simply, under federal law, nursing home residents have a right to be informed of and participate in their treatment. And that right does apply even if somebody has a legal guardian. So really the importance is including that individual to the greatest extent possible in their care planning, to make sure that their needs are being met and their desires. Certainly, we might all kind of differ in what we think is the best path forward for ourselves and others. And the person-centered planning approach really is putting that individual and what their expressed wish out in the forefront. And then these are some of the rights that are included to person-centered planning. And as I said, with the residents' rights, some of them are a bit duplicative with the residents' rights, and they do relate to this care planning where, again, this is involving different medical interventions and different kinds of treatment that people might need, making sure that that person is in the center of it. And so, as it relates to person-centered planning, an individual has a right to be informed in a language they understand of their health status and medical condition. And again, these are rights that are, broadly speaking, rights related to residents of nursing homes, not necessarily just people with paralysis or spinal cord injuries, but certainly inclusive of those people. And again, the right to make sure that individuals are being informed in a language that they can understand is incredibly important, just so that, again, these people can have meaningful engagement in their care planning. So again, somebody has a right to participate in developing their own plan of care, to establish goals and outcomes, to be informed in advance of any changes to their plan of care, to receive the services and items that are included in the plan of care, to review it and sign it if there are any significant changes that have been made, and to be informed in advance of the care to be furnished and the type of caregiver or professional to furnish the care. Again, maybe sometimes these seem a little intuitive, but I think always important to make sure that we really are very mindful of these kinds of rights, and making sure that we really are intentional about really including that person in this planning process, and making sure that they really are the one driving decision making. And so, of course, there are certain obligations for the nursing facility that needs to be made just to make sure that these rights are being protected. Rights only go so far as when they are being properly enforced. So the nursing home, the nursing facility does have obligations as it relates to person-centered planning. And so the nursing facility is required to inform you of your right to person-centered care planning, to make sure you and or a representative of your choice is included in the process, to include an assessment of your strengths and needs in the plan of care, and to make sure your cultural preferences and needs are incorporated in the care planning process. Again, this is supposed to be very specific to the individual, so similar to how if somebody needs to have their care plan in a particular language that they are able to understand, it is the same with cultural preferences, different kinds of individual preferences somebody might have. Okay, and so now we're just going to go a little bit over the Medicaid basics. And I did want to start with just two caveats. The first being that obviously there's been significant legislation recently related to Medicaid. And this information that I'm going to talk to you about today is really very specific to what is happening right now. It doesn't really take into account, the changes that will happen to Medicaid and what those are going to look like. So this is certainly something that we will be providing updates for folks as we get a little bit more clarity about what the changes are going to look like on the ground. So this is really a snapshot really in time of right now of some of the basics of Medicaid. And then the other caveat is that, again, I'm just going to go very briefly into the basics as it relates to individuals on managed long-term services and supports. Disability Rights New Jersey does have a webinar that is available online that provides a lot of really helpful information about Medicaid eligibility, and not just specific to managed long-term services and supports. So it includes a range of different types of Medicaid eligibility requirements, that kind of thing. And so going into all of that is kind of outside of the scope of today's presentation, but there's really helpful information in there. And that information is on our website, and I included the link in the slides that will go around as well. And some of the kind of numbers related to the eligibility groups changes every year. So we do update that Medicaid presentation each year to make sure that it is current. So the one that's linked and the one on our website is the most updated. Again, it will be updated again probably in early spring of the next calendar year. And obviously, as some of the changes to Medicaid, we have a little bit more information. That information will be shared as well. So there are numerous pathways for an individual in New Jersey to get on Medicaid. Again, we're just going to be discussing managed long-term services and supports. Another acronym often referred to as MLTSS. Again, I think it's important to hear both what MLTSS stands for, but also MLTSS, because that's much easier to say and what people often say in place of it. MLTSS is provided through New Jersey's Medicaid program, which is NJ Family Care. So MLTSS is a Medicaid waiver program designed to expand home and community-based services, community integration, and ensure quality. And individuals on MLTSS can receive services in both the community and institutional settings. So I think sometimes that can be a little bit confusing for folks. I think sometimes the long-term services and supports maybe kind of conveys the idea that we're talking about institutional settings like a nursing home, but certainly folks on MLTSS can also be receiving services in the community and living in the community. So for MLTSS, there are both financial eligibility requirements and clinical eligibility requirements. And again, I'm going to go briefly over this. It can, as I'm sure a lot of folks know, with Medicaid, it can get very complicated, very easy. So we won't kind of go into all of the different caveats for today. Again, there's a lot more information in that webinar that we did. But I'll just go over kind of briefly what we're talking about. So for MLTSS, for eligibility, there are financial eligibility requirements. And for an individual, the monthly income must be less than $2,901. And I didn't do a very good job with the link for this, so I apologize to everybody, but this is also linked to the New Jersey Department of Human Services website, which has more information about financial eligibility as well. And then another requirement is that an individual should have resources that are less than $2,000. Again, there are lots of very reasonable questions related to if somebody has resources in excess of $2,000, what counts as a monthly income, that kind of thing. A bit outside of the scope of what we're going to talk about today, but there's lots of great resources on our website that can answer some of those questions. And so for MLTSS, there is also a clinical eligibility requirement in order for people to be able to be on MLTSS. And again, I apologize. I know I have lots and lots of caveats. I don't know if folks work with a lot of lawyers or perhaps are lawyers, you know that we love a caveat to everything. We're talking really specifically to individuals over the age of 21. Again, we could speak for another hour about MLTSS and individuals under 21, but for today's purposes, I'm just referring to individuals who are over 21 years of age and their clinical eligibility. And so that individual must meet a nursing facility level of care that I discussed at the beginning of the presentation. So that hands-on assistance with 3 activities of daily living. So again, MLTSS is a little bit unique in that you need to have those financial eligibility requirements that I think most people think of when they think of Medicaid. And there is also that clinical eligibility, meaning that somebody needs to meet a nursing facility level of care. And I think that's sometimes too why people might think that somebody on MLTSS can only be provided services in a nursing home because you need to meet a nursing facility level of care. Very logical conclusion to reach, but certainly it is possible for individuals to meet the requirements for a nursing facility level of care, but receive that care in the community. And again, in a little bit, we'll kind of talk about what that looks like. But that's the clinical eligibility requirement. And so the MLTSS eligibility assessments are conducted by the Office of Community Choice Options, often called OCO. And this is through the Division of Aging Services, which is in the New Jersey Department of Human Services. So again, lots and lots of acronyms, but I think folks often kind of hear terms like OCO and MLTSS might not exactly know what people are telling them, but so OCO is part of what they do is conducting these assessments to determine whether somebody does meet that clinical eligibility for MLTSS. And so they'll be doing those assessments. And then once somebody is enrolled in MLTSS, they will receive a managed care organization referred to as an MCO. And these are the insurance companies that are contracted through the state of New Jersey to provide these Medicaid services to folks. So somebody that is coming into a nursing facility doesn't necessarily have to be on MLTSS already. A lot of times folks aren't on MLTSS yet. Sometimes they might become eligibility while they're in a nursing facility. There can be a whole host of different things that will happen. But once somebody is enrolled in MLTSS, they'll receive that managed care organization. It's important to know that because a lot of a lot of kind of the resources that you'll need to try to leave a nursing facility, the managed care organization is going to be very involved in that process. Okay, and so the right to discharge planning, obviously very important in all of this because, again, nursing facilities can sometimes be more temporary places that people will be residing at. Sometimes they do turn into very long-term placements, but individuals in nursing homes do have a right to discharge planning. Often what we will very typically see in terms of people that are going into nursing homes is maybe somebody went into the hospital, there was some kind of accident, they went into the hospital, maybe went into a rehabilitation center, and then went from there into a nursing facility, might be kind of how they've ended up in a nursing facility, and maybe they need certain changes, modifications made to their home so that they can return home. There could be a lot of different reasons that somebody is in a nursing facility for a short period of time, and that ultimately the longer goal is for them to be discharged somewhere else to a less restrictive setting, like their own home in the community. And so again, this is a right that applies generally to residents of nursing facilities, regardless of what your payer source is. And so discharge planning is supposed to help you plan leaving the nursing facility and moving to a new place. And when working well, it helps you be safe at your new place and provide that support and the resources that you need to be able to continue to live in that new setting. So the nursing facility must have a process in place to help you plan your discharge. And the facility really should be asking folks every so often if they're interested in returning to the community. I think sometimes nursing home residents maybe don't realize there are other options available to them out there. And the nursing facility really should be asking the residents regularly if they want to return to the community, if they want to move to a different setting. And if that is the case, and you let the social worker know at the nursing facility, they should start that discharge process or start the discharge planning process at the very least. And so again, if you're interested in leaving a nursing home, the facility should work with you to come up with the plan for discharge. The process must include you and include any other people, maybe supports that you have, and members of the entire treatment team should be involved. And so again, this really even comes back to that person-centered planning of very specific to an individual. What are their needs going to be? If they're returning back to the community, do they need maybe modifications to their home? Do they maybe need some personal care assistance? What does that look like? And so that should all really kind of be discussed in that discharge planning process. Okay, and so I'm just going to get a little bit into what some of these resources that might provide that assistance to allow somebody to leave a nursing facility. Again, not necessarily completely specific to folks with paralysis or spinal cord injuries. There are, of course, people with a range of different care needs and disabilities that might benefit from these services. But a lot of these services, it's a lot of folks need these services put in place in order to make it so that they can be discharged home. So again, maybe we're talking about an individual that does need a nursing facility level of care. Maybe they do require that hands-on assistance with three activities of daily living. But again, that doesn't mean they need to reside in a nursing home. There are supports that can be put in place to make sure that that person perhaps can return back to their family home, can go to some other setting with assistance. So obviously a very important piece of this is called durable medical equipment. I think this is also very often just referred to as DME, but that means durable medical equipment. And so durable medical equipment includes items like wheelchairs, hospital beds, oxygen equipment, that can help you move around and perform daily tasks. And so again, perhaps maybe somebody prior to entering a nursing facility didn't require the use of a wheelchair or oxygen equipment, but coming out of a nursing facility, they would need to do that. This would be considered durable medical equipment. And so New Jersey is required to establish reasonable standards to provide DME to Medicaid beneficiaries. And there are various ways to obtain DME through various programs and suppliers in New Jersey. So the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is CMS, which is what operates Medicaid. And so that's what's putting these requirements that include requirements for Medicaid beneficiaries in New Jersey. They do require physician review of medical supplies, equipment, and appliances that are ordered for a Medicaid recipient. So there does need to be the involvement of a physician in writing prescriptions for this kind of coverage. And a state, including New Jersey, may have a list of pre-approved medical equipment, but there cannot be an exclusion on coverage for particular medical equipment. So essentially, the idea is that DME, durable medical equipment, might look different from person to person. Again, it's really very person specific. Each individual might require different assistance with a different kind of medical equipment. And so states can't say, these types of things do not explicitly do not count. It really needs to be a little bit more open-ended. But a state does have that list of pre-approved medical equipment and supplies if individuals are curious, as to whether DME would be covered for them. And then once a person is on Medicaid in New Jersey, there's really these three general steps to obtain DME. And first, the device must be covered. Again, they need to have physician sign off saying that they would require the assistance from this DME. You need to be able to request it. And then again, that managed care organization that is providing your Medicaid, providing the coverage for you, it has to be approved by that MCO. And so the MCO might have its own criteria related to what is DME, different things that are covered, the process in order to get DME approved. So certainly if folks are curious and if they are a Medicaid beneficiary, they are on MLTSS and have an MCO, good to kind of start from there and say, what is kind of the process. And again, as I said before, in terms of an individual knowing who their MCO is, and that MCO being really a big part of this discharge planning process, it's important because, again, things like durable medical equipment might be something that needs to be a conversation had with that managed care organization so that somebody can have a safe discharge.
So Brent, can I just raise a quick question on that point was brought up in the chat as to whether the expenses for durable medical equipment go to Medicare first and then to the Medicaid HMO?
That is a good question. I don't feel confident enough to give a solid answer to that because I'm really referring exclusively to Medicaid in this discussion. And there certainly are different requirements if an individual is if they are on Medicare or if they're dual eligible on Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid is the payer of last resort. And so I think that would be the instance that was described in that question, but I also don't want to give incorrect information. But thank you, Jill. And thank you for that question. And then again, just kind of talking a little bit about some of the potential things that might need to be put in place in order for somebody to be discharged from a nursing facility. I had mentioned this briefly before, but there is personal care assistance. And I do want to say as well, we're going to talk a little bit about personal care assistance, a little bit about private duty nursing. I just spoke briefly about durable medical equipment, DME. This is certainly not an exhaustive list of what an individual being discharged from a nursing facility might need in order to return home to the community or return somewhere else. There certainly are lots of other things that could be put in place, but these are the three items that I'm talking about today are certainly a very big piece of it. And again, typically when we're talking about folks who do meet that nursing facility level of care, and that are maybe wanting to return back to their home, these are services that they typically are able to utilize and really will help them to live in the community. So personal care assistance, again, often referred to as PCA. This provides help with activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, eating, and moving around your home. And so this is, of course, very similar to the clinical eligibility, the eligibility requirements for a nursing facility level of care. And like I said, just because you meet that definition of a nursing facility level of care doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a nursing home. You can certainly receive those services in the community, and plenty of folks do every day are remaining in their family home and maybe have a personal care assistant, family members, other folks that are providing that support for those ADLs, for those activities of daily living. And so for a personal care assistant, the need for moderate or greater hands-on assistance in at least one of these activities of daily living, or minimal assistance in three different activities of daily living. And then a personal care assistant can also help with housekeeping tasks like cleaning, laundry. There's a whole host of different services. And again, I think really important to be very aware of personal care assistance, because even if an individual that is living in the community maybe doesn't require hands-on assistance with all activities of daily living, but they do need assistance with things like housekeeping, cleaning, shopping. That is something that potentially a personal care assistant would be able to provide that support. And then finally, private duty nursing, again, is another service that can be provided in the community that might be able to make it so that an individual who was in a nursing facility could return to a place like their community home. And private duty nursing is different from personal care assistance. A personal care assistance really is dealing with the activities of daily living, but private duty nursing offers more specialized medical care at somebody's home. And so this is really more specific to if somebody has complex medical needs that require continuous monitoring or treatment. So again, there might be an individual who's in a setting like a hospital, a nursing facility that does will require that pretty consistent medical intervention, that assistance by a trained medical professional. And that is a possibility for individuals to receive that nursing in their own home. And it's referred to as private duty nursing. And so the nurses help with medication management, wound care, medical procedures, ensuring that the individual receives necessary medical attention. They can do the private duty nursing staff can do a whole host of different things, but really providing that very that very specific kind of treatment that is medically necessary. And again, could talk for like another hour at least about private duty nursing and what that includes. But again, can be a really important piece of folks that are trying to discharge from a nursing facility, particularly back to their family home. private duty nursing can be kind of a helpful bridge in order to make sure that that happens. Okay. And so I know there was that one question. Jill, are there any other
We
questions in the chat?
do. I have a few questions. And so the first appears to be related. Cheryl is asking about an involuntary nursing home discharge.
Oh, okay. Um, about what is entailed with an involuntary nursing home discharge?
Yes, she has a family member who is trying to be discharged from the nursing home. Um, believes it is retaliation for reporting
Mm.
negligent care. He does not have a place to go. I don't know, Cheryl, if you want to come off mute and clarify any details I might have missed.
Yes, he doesn't have a place of residence. He's on waiting list for Section 8, but his condition is critical. He has heart condition and he's a diabetic and he cannot even get around. He needs assistance just to even get out of a bed or into a bed or anything like that. And they have now incited wanting him to be released after he filed the complaint of the negligent. They literally threw out his personal property out of his drawers and things after he made a complaint. And he came back to his room, was brought back to his room where he found that his wallet and everything else was tossed out. And
So
now it's served with this where we think you don't need to be here, that they're trying to release him, discharge him. And right now it stands at meeting with the state office to intervene.
So I would certainly, Cheryl, encourage you to reach out to our intake. And I'm just going to
Mhm.
go to the next slide. If you haven't already, our information is on here. There certainly are protections against involuntary discharge, as I mentioned briefly. And I think for your situation, it's probably helpful to just know a little bit more about what's going on so that we can give you some more specific information about the situation because it can vary by a few different there might be a few different things kind of happening. So yeah, certainly if you reach out to our intake
Okay.
team, we can maybe talk to you a little bit more and get a little bit more information. Um,
Okay.
but but yeah, thank you very much, Cheryl.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that, Cheryl, but certainly we're always happy to provide whatever assistance we can related to that issue.
And Bren, there's a question about the MCO care manager not responding. The individual's calling the care manager requesting a replacement of durable medical equipment and not getting any response back. Is there an alternate way to address
Oh,
that?
I wish I had a really good answer for you. And I unfortunately do not think that I do. Certainly a lot of the care managers, as I'm sure a lot of folks know, have a very, very, very high amount of cases. And so it can be difficult to get in touch with them sometimes. Um, Sometimes we've had luck trying to maybe get in touch with a supervisor at the managed care organization. I don't know for your particular situation if you've maybe had luck going through, if there's a social worker or a support coordinator, somebody else involved that maybe could reach out to the care manager and get a little bit more information. But in terms of hearing back, again, I wish I had a really good response that was helpful. And I have yet to learn what the secret is I don't know, Jill, if you have any other
Yeah, I
knowledge.
mean, I don't know. Walter in the chat suggested contacting the long-term care ombudsman. I also don't know if perhaps the MACS, the medical assistance consumer something. I forget again, those acronyms. It's the MACCs, the customer care lines for medical assistance. I'm going to find that and put that in the chat too. Sometimes they're able to intervene and get you somebody. Let me find that.
And there is also certainly additional information about potential replacements for DME requirements if somebody maybe needs a new wheelchair, that kind of thing. There are requirements about that, and certainly trying to get in touch with the managed care, the care coordinator would be a good way to kind of get a little bit more information about that. And I did see too that Mandy did also say that Medicare is always the primary insurer. And so yes, Medicaid will always be the payer of last resort. Let me just see if I see anything else.
Yes, there's also a suggestion.
So,
Department of Health.
Yes. Okay, then there's a question. How do individuals handle needing support when they do not get along with staff designated to assist? So I think this is a really important question, because, even if we're thinking of individuals maybe who have personal care assistants in their homes, who need whatever kind of support, a very important component of that is having a good relationship with that person. And so there could certainly be a whole host of different ways in which we try to maybe resolve issues if there is some kind of confrontation or disagreement happening between somebody. So I think if there is an issue with somebody like a personal care assistant, maybe trying to go through that provider service and try to work that out. Because as we've talked today about person-centered planning and about the rights of residents of nursing homes, certainly that's particularly at Disability Rights New Jersey, that's always at the forefront of what we focus on is the rights of that individual person. And so if somebody is maybe not receiving the type of support that they need, I would certainly always say if there is some way to try to advocate and maybe speak to whoever that provider is to sort out that issue, because it really is about a person being comfortable and having that independence. So
Yes, thank you. Cindy dropped in the chat the Department of Health complete.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Cindy.
Which is another resource.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. And certainly people can come off mute too if they do have another specific question. But if not, I really appreciate everybody being here today. I think the work of the Reeve Foundation is really remarkable, and they've done clearly just so much work over the past, almost 25 years now, since 2002. And so, Disability Rights New Jersey is certainly very grateful to have received some funding from the Reeve Foundation. We're certainly happy to always engage in this work and provide this important information to folks. Again, our website has a lot of helpful information. We have a whole bunch of different social media handles if people want to reach out to us that way, connect with us. But we're trying to make sure that as much information as possible is up on our website, Resource Center, so that folks are able to access it. And this presentation will be up there shortly. So again, thank you very much for everybody for coming, for listening, and for asking questions. Oh,
Can you hear me? I do have a question. I put it in the chat, but this is Cindy. When MCO, I guess you call it, so Horizon NJ Health doesn't respond in a timely manner when you ask them about replacing durable medical equipment, what suggestions do you have? I mean, that's
Yeah, Cindy,
Yeah,
we did throw out a couple of suggestions. I did ask that question a little bit earlier. Some of the suggestions were contacting the ombudsman's office. I put a link in the chat to the medical assistance customer centers, which can sometimes help navigate the MCOs when you're at an impasse with them not getting through. And then there was also the Department of Health. I think all of those links are in the chat here.
okay. All right. I mean, I'm just like, I know I'm being picky, but if she's supposed to have her blood pressure taken once a day and, they take their time and get back to you 8 or 10 days later, and you're talking to an RN who's the care manager, to me, that's like an FU, I'm like, Jesus, the state is paying for service. I don't think it's unreasonable that they get back to you, within a day or two when it's a daily need.
Yeah, no, they should be getting back to you. And I don't know if the specific MCO has a customer hotline or customer care number you can call, but the consumer centers certainly do. If it's persistent, I would think the Ombudsman or Department of Health. And again, I'd scroll back all those links I believe
Okay.
are in the chat. Thank you.
All right.
and it certainly is very frustrating, Cindy, and certainly from our side, I it's very challenging for us as well. I think probably a lot of people experience that, and again, it could really be for a whole host of reasons. But it still is extremely frustrating when you're going through it and it is a pressing issue, and you're not hearing back. So we're always trying to kind of come up with ways that are successful, and it can be different based on who the MCO is and all that kind of stuff. So, but thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much again, everybody. Thank you, Jill. Let me see. So it looks like Gladys had just said about contacting New Jersey legislatures. That's certainly an intervention people could take.
You guys know getting thrown out.
Okay.
Certainly, I think all kinds of advocacy efforts are incredibly important. And so, yes, that's certainly one way that people could go. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I hope everybody has a good rest of their, I almost said Monday, it's Tuesday. So if you have any indication of how my Tuesday's going, but thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Brent.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Barb.
Yeah, my buddy. All right, have a good one.